Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and welcome to a brand new episode of Bionicle Fanon Reviews, the show where I review fan-created, canonized, or non-canonized Bionicle models and contest winners, which is going to be the topic of today's video. Now, previously we hosted here on Duckbricks the Dinosaurs of Bota Magna Fanon contest. We got hundreds of entries, narrowed it down to 12 finalists, and I am building and reviewing all 12 finalists to showcase here on the channel for all of you. And so today we will be taking a look at one of the finalists from the top 12 category of the large category of the Bionicle Dinosaurs of Bota Magna. I can't wait to get into this because there were so many incredible, unique, custom LEGO creations. And so, without further ado, let's jump right in to the review. Okay, so this is the Spredatiacus by Stacks. It won second place in the Bionicle Dinosaurs of Bota Magna Fanon contest, taking home a ton of prizes, so congratulations to Stacks for winning second place, voted by you. Now this is a really interesting dinosaur who, again, much like many of these other dinosaurs, barely fits within my review frame, so I'm gonna have to chop the foot off a little bit to do the intro here. Now this is an interesting one because it relies heavily on smoother builds and really emphasizes the organic look of these creatures. You do have a few Bionicle pieces, like you've got the Viscerac claws here, but even those are pretty streamlined, and I guess the Pridac feet also are pretty streamlined, no pistons, same with the blades. I don't actually see really many pistons on this model in terms of the official Bionicle styling, except for the claws here, which I guess they have some on the back, but even then, these are some of the most organic LEGO pieces in terms of the way they're built. So overall, it is a very, very interesting look and feel and design for a model, which almost feels like a bone-like or skeleton dinosaur. You have the exposed ribcage here, which is very cool. I think that's one of my favorite details about the model is the ribcage itself. And then you have the head, which is done in a remarkably detailed way. I love the integration of the Pridac blades and these Tachodox blades here to really make a almost bird-like mouth. This looks like a fin on the top of the head, which again ties into the dinosaur kind of theming, which are the ancestors of birds, so you've kind of got this very beak-like creature, so it's certainly quite interesting design. Now, I do want to start off with posability and then work our way down. There are a few cons when it comes to posability, namely, it can't stand up. Honestly, it just doesn't really stand. It'll just fall over. You can see it's now resting on the claws at the bottom there. It's very difficult to get this to stand, and I just want to get that out of the way first. It's not a bad model by any means. It just simply doesn't have the strength in the ball joints to actually make it stand up. As you can see, if you move the claws up, he'll just fall forwards. I can try to move the legs really far forwards and try to compensate for that, but then he's still leaning forwards and falling over, so it's just not a really fun one to stand, to be honest. There aren't really that many ways that you can set it up such that it does stand. I don't know if this is just my ball joints being weak, and maybe this could be fixed by just the addition of more friction add-ons, but yeah, he'll just fall over. So with that out of the way though, there are a couple of ways that you can kind of get him to stand, I guess. Like, you can really, really mess with the way that the legs are set up to try to move those forwards. This also just flops down, which is kind of annoying, but you can try to get the legs to go like this, and then now I have the head resting against my wall. So this is going to stand for the purposes of the review, but not really in real life, because if we move him away from my wall, he'll just kind of start to fall over. Now the tail's catching there, but yeah, for the review, okay, this actually looks like, it's kind of standing. It's toppling over quite a lot, but it's getting there. So there's a way that you can get it to stand up. It just isn't that easy. Now, the thing with the model is, though, that thankfully it is pretty posable, and if you can manage to lean it, I don't know, against a wall or something, or against a surface, like right now it's leaning against my wall of the review studio. This looks great. I mean, this is standing up totally okay, so you really just have to kind of put it in a box or against the wall and let it stay, and it will be totally fine. Moving on for the most posability. Oh, this, did we get it? This is actually, okay, it's standing. Look at that. Okay, so it's not impossible to stand, it's just difficult. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to mess this up now because I need to show the posability for the legs, but, you know, look, it's standing, that's not touching the review studio wall at all, so I guess the tail is catching there to prevent it from falling forwards, but that, you can just put something on the tail. So this, for the most part, is standing, so that's wonderful. Let's move it forwards a bit. Yeah, there we go. He's, not really. The tail, it's because the tail is holding him back. It's just very front heavy, that's the thing. But talking about the posability, we've spent enough time talking about how it can or cannot stand. Let's just look at the way the legs move. I actually do really like the way the joints work here, because you can move the joints outwards and back and forth, which is typically a very strong joint, but I believe it probably could have just used a couple more piston pieces to add on to that. You have just dual ball joints for the knees here, and unfortunately this rock sheet piece doesn't hold on to anything, so it just kind of flips forwards. But you can also move the lower leg here, and the feet are actually mounted. The feet are actually probably the most stable thing in general, because you can move them side to side and back and forth, and they're on friction joints. So the feet are going to be probably the hardest things to actually cause to not help with the posability here, which is great, because that's really all you need. Now the back of the leg is basically the same. Inexplicably, there are open ball joints on the feet here. Don't know why those are there, but they kind of just add to the red highlights and detailing, I guess. The arms themselves are done very simply. Sorry he keeps falling over. This is not a very easy model to review and photograph. I'll be happy when this review is done, so I don't have to keep trying to get him standing up. But we have these particular pieces here being used for the arms, so you can move them back and forth like so. You can move the elbow, just standard Lego Bionicle limb pieces being used here, nothing too crazy. The head itself is easily my favorite part of the model, because look at that. That looks great from the front, it looks great from an angle, it looks really good from the side. I love the way this head is done, and that is easily the best part of the model in my opinion. Now I think that's probably what caused it to win as well, because folks saw the head and realized how cool and well shaped this is, and absolutely kudos to the builder, because this is a really cool and posable head. So you can have it looking up, looking downwards, you can have it kind of looking to the side at angles if you really want to bend the pieces like so. So that is really cool. This is great. I love the way the head is done. So in my opinion, that's probably the best part of the model. You can move the neck up and down, so you can kind of get that angled upwards like so. You can also move it a little bit here, but for the most part, it's pretty fixed. Like, you can go like that, but I don't really know why you would want to do that. But yeah, you can do it if you want to. Moving on back to the tail, that is basically what you would expect for the tail itself. Now, you can see here, it's super simple. This is a remarkably simple build compared to some of the other dinosaurs, in the sense that you can just move the tail, because they're all just literally long long CCBS pieces, just all attached with some large Hero Factory shells on the side. Very, very simple construction for the tail here, and one that looks great to me. It looks fine. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. But with that, I think we have summed up the posability, where you can see it just doesn't pose, unfortunately, just falls over, which is a little unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. A lot of Bionicle models are very, very much like this. Now, in terms of the rest of the build, I do quite like the way that a lot of it is built. Going on to the building techniques, I think the way the legs are done are probably some of my favorite parts about the model. Even though they don't really hold up its own weight, you can see that there's a high amount of articulation here. Let's just get the light shining on those legs there so you can really see them in their detail. But yeah, you've got a good amount of articulation here with the feet. I like the way that the joints are set up, and these are basically the perfect range of motion that you would need for legs of a large creature. If only they had a little bit more friction, that would be a lot better. Moving onwards for building techniques, the head obviously is my favorite part of the model and is built in a really fantastic way. I love the expressiveness of this creature. You can really kind of make it look like it is angry or confused or looking like that to the side. It's just very expressive in the way that you have the head. So that is really fantastic. I think that is a great aspect of the model. And the way the ribcage is done is very simple. It's just using kind of triple axle pieces, but it comes together quite well. And the building techniques are generally pretty good for the way the ribcage is set up. I also like the parts usages of these very large fin elements. It kind of makes this look like a big Spinosaurus-like creature, where you've got the Halimari wings, 4 copies of them just really stood up here, which looks fantastic. I like the way that this forms a frill alongside the back of the dinosaur. Some great parts usage there. And then you have some of these silver colors. This is going into more aesthetics here, but I like the way that these spikes are pretty much silver, because the only parts that are spiky or kind of have some mechanical detail are silver, suggesting that these are kind of the mechanical add-ons to the dinosaur itself, and then the bone structure itself is just all white and very smooth, kind of like bones. So that is something that absolutely works in this model's favor. Moving onwards from that, I think that we've kind of summed up all the points we have to say about this model in terms of posability, aesthetics, and building techniques. What we're going to do now is bring over some representative samples. We have the Agori Ranu here from the Fire Tribe, so let's get him in there so you can see he's pretty small. He's kind of dwarfed by this creature. And then we have the Glatorian Akar. So this is Akar right here. And let's just put him in, and he is pretty scaled nicely to him. You can see that he kind of goes right up. His head goes up to the top of the torso here of the dinosaur itself. So altogether, I think this looks pretty good. Maybe the head just feels a little oversized and cartoonish for the body compared to it. The body's kind of smaller. This head looks like it could be used on a much larger dinosaur because it's super big. It's almost cartoonish in how large it is compared to the body, and it does look very large compared to the other creatures themselves or the other characters in the Magna and Bota Magna world. But overall, I think it's alright. It is interesting in the way that they work together. Probably my biggest complaint here is that it uses a lot of CCBS and a lot of smooth pieces. And don't get me wrong, I love CCBS. I think I am the biggest defender of CCBS. I think it is a superior system. Don't quote me on that, to the Bionicle G1 system. Maybe in some ways. Not in all the ways, but in some ways. In some very, very particular ways. However, this is a MOC that is meant to fit within the G1 system, and so it feels to me a little bit too smooth. I get what they were going for with maybe an organic style of build with the armor plating, but I don't know, it feels very smooth and very much like it's in a different style of building system than the other models here. So that is a bit of a con to me, and unfortunately it isn't very easily rideable because of the spikes. Usually what I do is I try to make the characters ride them, but I think the spikes will get in the way, so maybe this is just a predator that attacks them. But I think overall, for believability in universe, I'm going to probably give this model a 6.5 out of 10, which may seem a little bit harsh. I think it is a really cool model on its own, but to fit in with the Bionicle Bota Magna world, I don't necessarily know if it really does fit in perfectly. The shell pieces are very smooth. Even the Bionicle G1 parts they use tend to emphasize the smoother aspects of things and not the pistons. So you've got the claws here, which really are very organic. Even the spikes here feel very organic. The Korok shield, which is a G1 piece, is basically just a smooth piece in and of itself. So you've got a lot of pieces that are intentionally being used to remove mechanical detail and make it feel organic. But because of that, it doesn't quite feel like it makes sense in universe, if that makes sense to you. Moving onwards, though, to the other points, posability, it does keep falling over. This one's tough, because I like the way that you can move the feet around. The way that the legs are constructed are really good, actually, because you can actually have them at different angles. They just needed more friction. I don't know, 7 out of 10? 6.5 out of 10? Maybe another 6.5 out of 10 for posability, I think. Unfortunately, because it just keeps falling over. That's the big con here. And that's definitely something we want to avoid with models like these. Now, in terms of the overall rest of the model, for building techniques, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think the building techniques are pretty good. They're pretty simple, especially in the arms. The tail is just a series of pieces stacked together, and there isn't really a good contour. But that head looks wonderful, and that absolutely won it back a lot of points in my mind for the head itself, which I think is fantastic. So the head itself, fantastic. If it was just the head, 10 out of 10. The rest of it, I don't know, 5, 6 out of 10. So it balances out to being like a 7.5 out of 10. And overall for aesthetics, completely ignoring believability in universe, aesthetically speaking, this is really cool. I love the spikes being used, the bone ribcage here. It feels very kind of skull-like, almost like something you would find on Skull Island or something like that, that sort of a creature. So aesthetically speaking, this is getting a 9 out of 10. I love the way it comes together, and just ignoring the other representative samples here, this is a really cool looking dinosaur. And I think that cool factor is absolutely what propelled it to be second place, which is fantastic. So really love the way this looks. Very, very much a big fan of the overall aesthetics, just kind of taking everything else aside. And that about sums up my review of the Spredatiacus by Fanon. Again, a massive thank you to everybody who has been a part of the contest, from helping me review entries, to submitting, to voting, to just sharing the videos and sharing the contests. These contests have been such a blast to run, and I hope you've enjoyed them as much as I've enjoyed running them with my team of reviewers. So thank you so much for that. This is a great model, absolutely deserving of second place, and yeah, thank you for tuning in. And be sure to subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye for now.